I was outdoor outside. I went to some place yesterday and it was lovely. The sky was clear. It was beautiful, lovely sunshine. So I don't know about today, but yesterday was really nice.
Now it's fine. You can start.
Okay, we can start. Okay, thank you very much. Very warm good morning to the class. This is MPSC 1 titled India and the World. Today is the third class. We started out on the first class on 5th of January. We covered basically 4 units. Evolution of worldview, providing a more composite view of the world and situate India within that. And I also discussed about the theoretical approaches. We also discussed about the broad objectives and determinants of India's foreign policy. Also, decision-making institutions with special reference to MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, National Security Council, Prime Minister's Office, PMO, the Parliament, and the parliamentary committees. Those are very, very important. And just 2-3 days ago, I was in I think maybe 2 days ago, I was in a selection board meeting at Institute of Defense and Strategic Study, Manohar Parrikar Institute. Some of you may be knowing. I remember I was going through a research proposal and the student did not know that there is a nice, beautiful, lovely library in the parliament. When I was a student 30-40 years ago, I used to extensively use not only Tinmurti Library and Sapru House, Indian Council for World Affairs, plus JNU and DU, etc. But this parliament library, and there I think I got access to a lot of the debates that take place in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha by various political parties, not only the ruling party, but also the opposition parties and the kind of things they say for, against, on anything, whether it is Indo-US civil nuclear deal, whether it is Bangladesh crisis, whatever. I think those are very, very useful, really. So I told that candidate in IDSA to get access to whatever resources you get. We are lucky that we are in Delhi and we can get a lot of things. A lot of things are open public domain, not classified. We also talked about in the next class on the 12th of January, we discussed about the processes, the political parties, the DC pressure groups, the media. One thing I forgot last time was we talked about the vernacular media, we talked about the print media, like all the major national dailies, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, you name it. I mean, all the newspapers that you see, the Pioneer, the Tribune, the Telegraph, but also the vernacular media. Sometimes they also come up with some light articles. I'm from Odisha. I used to write a lot of articles 10, 20 years ago in various newspaper outlets in my state, in Odia language also, apart from in English languages. Plus, I think one of the new things that has happened in the last 15, 20 years is the role of social media. And I'm sure you are aware of that. I'm very active user of Twitter. Literally every single day or every other day, I used to put something, whatever thing that comes to my mind that is relevant to India, that is relevant to international politics, relations, the global issues. If I feel strongly about it, I do put forth, and I do get a lot of responses from that. From North American studies, Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, etc., etc. So social media is also having a very strong influence on the foreign policy decision making. And I think the policy makers, they also pay very close attention to the social media, the Twitter, which is now owned by Elon Musk, X, Instagram, Facebook. So I think a lot of things, even YouTube, like our lectures that are being done. I think Dr. Sadanand is taking care of that, the technical part. So that is, I mean, in a way, a person can access to all the things that is going on around, in and around the world. Okay. We talked about NGOs, how they play important role, business, the diaspora group, which is a very vibrant group. Even in our current Prime Minister also, he pays a lot of attention to that. We just very recently, we had a very successful Prabasi Bharatiya Divas convention in Bhubaneswar. So diaspora is a very, very important arms and wings of the Indian public diplomacy. Think tanks in many different parts of India, Calcutta, Bangalore. In Delhi, for example, I have been involved with a lot of think tanks. They're doing splendid job in disseminating knowledge, disseminating information. Indian Council for World Affairs, Defense and Strategic Studies, Tinmurti, Prime Minister's Museum, There are many libraries, Indian Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, Vivekananda Foundations. So it doesn't matter whether a particular think tank is affiliated with the left or right or center. Our purpose as an academic or as a student or as an enthusiast of India's foreign policy to know more about the different dimensions, the different debates that takes place. We also talked about India's foreign policy and overview. I tried to provide that all the way from 1947 till contemporary times, from Nehru to Modi. We also discussed about India-US relations, ups and downs, love, hate, love, okay, hate, okay, the different ups and downs, convergence, divergence, engagement, estrangement, etc. European Union, we talked about India-Russia relations. I conveyed to you my personal experiences when I was in Russia as a visiting professor at Moscow University in 2017, how there are students who are very interested to know about India and Russia relations over the period during the old Soviet Union till the end of Cold War, and again in the post-Cold War era with Russia and other countries. With India and China again, all the way from 50s, 60s till today, again it has been a very rocky, very turbulent relationship, but that is also something that needs to be discussed about. And India-Japan relations, that is also very significant, particularly in the aftermath of India's Look East policy, which later on during Manmohan Singh's time, it was Look East policy. And then during Vajpayee's government, the Sushma Swaraj times, it was converted into Act East policy, and how we are actively moving on to Look East. Because traditionally, as you know, India's policy has been Look West policy in West Asia and beyond. But today we are diversifying the big net of foreign policy, and that also includes Look East and also beyond East. I mean, we go to look on down under to Australia, New Zealand, even small countries like Kiribati, Vanuatu, to Fiji. There are also significant amount of Indian diaspora. They live there, and our Prime Minister has got a outreach over there. He did visit Fiji as well. Okay, so there is nothing like a big country, small country, medium country. All countries are important in today's and contemporary geopolitics. Today we'll talk about India and neighbors in chapter 9. India and the neighbors, like if you look in a more clockwise fashion, put India in the center, you see if you turn around, you see Bhutan, Nepal, then Myanmar, okay, then Bangladesh, then the Bay of Bengal, then you go down to the south, you see Sri Lanka, then again next to that is Maldives, then west we have got Pakistan. So these are the countries that surrounds that, which is very diversified, okay. Certain countries, they have got oceans like Maldives, it is in the Indian Ocean, it's in the Arabian Sea. And small island countries, they have got their advantages as well as vulnerabilities. There is a lot of concern that if there is a serious case of global warming or climate change, it is possible Maldives as a nation may not survive because it's in a very low end. Okay, so they have got their advantages as well as disadvantages. The landscape, we have mountains, rivers, you have got different deserts, extremely cold, extremely hot, all kinds of places. There are countries which are landlocked countries surrounded by mountains and different land boundaries like Nepal and Bhutan, etc. So they have got their own geographical disadvantages or vulnerabilities. For example, let us say Nepal or even Bhutan, they would like to import certain things from another country. So what they have to do is those stuff will come to Kolkata or Chittagong in Bangladesh, okay? And then that will be ferried over to those countries in a very mountainous region in a terrain. So that takes a lot of time, lot of money. Plus, it is also important for those countries, even if they don't like it, they have to be friendly with those countries, with India or with Bangladesh, with other countries. So what I mean to say is landlocked country, they do have certain geographical disadvantage. So they need to navigate how and try to maintain good cordial relations with all other countries. Okay. If you look at India specifically in a bilateral terms, in India and the neighbors, India and Pakistan, they have Kashmir issue. Of course, this is not a full class on Kashmir. We can talk forever. And needless to say, there are 4 wars that took place on Kashmir, major wars, 1947, 1965, 1971, that led to, of course, creation of Bangladesh, which was formerly known as East Pakistan. Then 1999 war, which is known as the Kargil war, plus lot of small wars here and there. Okay, we have the similar agreements that took place in 1972, and we did have both track 1 diplomacy and track 2 diplomacy that has been going on at least since the Vajpayee years. If you remember, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the prime minister under NDA government, he did undertake a bus trip to Lahore, extending the hand of friendship and cooperation to Pakistan. Then later on, he invited then Pakistani leader, President Parvez Musharraf, to Agra, known as the Agra Summit. So he did try very hard, in a very meaningful way, in a very substantive way, I would say, to bring about some kind of rapprochement, some kind of normalcy to the India-Pakistan relations, and particularly trying to find a solution to this vexed problem of Kashmir. When we talk about India and Pakistan, of course, as you know, apart from Kashmir, there is also issues related to Indus River, the sharing of the treaties. We do have some agreements. Sometimes it is violated by either one of the countries for various reasons. But one of the main factor between India and Pakistan has been, over the years, has been the nuclear issue. And as you all know, India exploded the nuclear device in 1974 when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. At that point of time, Mrs. Gandhi termed that nuclear test as a peaceful nuclear explosion, PNE, peaceful nuclear explosion. But in the year 1998, I think in the month of May, India, under Atal Bihari Vajpayee, we went over, and that is known as the Pokhran 2 explosion, because the first one also took place in the desert in Pokhran in Rajasthan. So this was Pokhran 2 in 98 in summer, and India tested successfully the nuclear devices. Okay, and within few weeks, Pakistan, and at that time it was ruled by the prime minister was Nawaz Sharif, they also tested nuclear device. So by the summer of 1998, both India and Pakistan, both of them had got nuclear weapons capabilities. They are overtly nuclear, no hidden, no closet kind of things. Okay, so that brought about a different dimension. So for example, in India, we had got now 2 nuclear neighbors. One is China, which has been nuclear since 1964, and Pakistan, who also is a nuclear power. We don't know the exact number because this is highly confidential and classified, but most analysts that come in the public domain, it says Pakistan probably has got more nuclear weapons than India. Okay, you can say this is very rational, it doesn't make any sense, it is illogical, and we don't know exactly how many. And some people say 150, 160, 170, and India probably close to that. Okay, so, and you'll be very surprised that I have done some writing, some books and articles on the nuclear issue of both the countries in a comparative aspect. There has been a lot of study by Harvard University and Princeton University in US in a simulated lab kind of experiment in a hypothetical scenario. And one of the study I will try to tell you today is there has been a study by a professor from Princeton University, and in a simulated exercise in a hypothetical manner, that if Pakistan drops 5 bombs over 5 populous cities of India, like Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Delhi, Hyderabad, etc., and India drops 5 nuclear bombs over Pakistan, Karachi, Lahore, Peshawar, Islamabad, like that, okay, it will kill at least 10 to 15 million people on both sides, which is very scary. Okay, so this is a simulated, and many more people might die even after. I spent long 8 years in Japan. I was teaching. I've been to Nagasaki, to Hiroshima. A lot of my students, they are descendants from the nuclear survivors, the nuclear holocaust. And as you know, in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, lakhs of people died, but many more millions of people died in the subsequent years due to radioactive elements and a lot of other health issues that also crop up. So it's a very scary thing. So again, now that the reality is both India and Pakistan are nuclear powers, I mean, what to do about it? I mean, nobody's going to give up or abandon the nuclear status because it gives them certain kind of aura, certain kind of status kind of thing, okay? And going to the big league of nuclear powers. And one of the theory that has been propounded over many, many years is called nuclear deterrence. How you can deter or avoid a nuclear confrontation by other countries. Some people say, okay, let us have a nuclear doctrine. India does have a nuclear doctrine of no fast use, putting a voluntary moratorium on any further testings, having an NDMA, National Disaster Management Authorities, okay, and not use it, okay? Only India will respond if there is an attack on India in a second strike or in a punitive retaliation. Pakistan, for example, doesn't have any such nuclear doctrines per se in a very open manner, but it is believed that they believe that side in a fast strike kind of thing. So before you hit me, I hit you, okay? And the thing is, between, let us say, a plane takes up from Lahore, would like to come towards Gujarat or to Delhi, it will take only a few minutes. And the same thing from here, okay? So it is very, very scary. That's why, you know, there has been a lot of discussions in the last 15, 20, 30 years, how we can reduce the risk of a accidental nuclear war, or even if it's a limited war. And if nuclear war is limited, if there is something called that, can it be limited? Why? Because once it is unleashed, it's very difficult to put the genie inside the bottle. So these are the issues, okay? India, Pakistan, the trade issues, the other things that comes into play, even certain things which as innocuous like cricket, okay? Sometimes they also feel victim because, you know, for a normal public, I mean, we like to enjoy the ghazal singers from Pakistan, film stars, okay? So a lot of times it affects also at the people to people level as well. On Nepal, okay, the monarchy was there, Birendra, Gyanendra for a long, long time, Mahendra, Bahadur, okay. But in the post-monarchy phase, in the post-Gyanendra phase, after this brutal assassination of literally the entire family of King Birendra, that has created a new chapter, not only in Nepal, but in terms of Nepal's relation with its neighbor, particularly India. And we have got governments that has been friendly to India, but we also have governments in Nepal which is much more friendly to China. And some governments, they would like to maintain kind of equidistance or maybe simultaneously good relations with both the countries. Nepal is in a very vulnerable position because it is like a sandwich between the two big major powers, China and India. So it's very difficult for them to maintain this delicate balance between the two big powerful countries. And we do have some border issues with Nepal, the Kalapani issues, certain certain districts, certain areas which India thinks it's a part of Nepal, but Nepal thinks sometimes the issues of drug trafficking, human trafficking that takes place through Nepal borders, because Nepal-India borders in Bihar and UP and other places, they are very porous. Okay, so it is very easy for people to sneak in and sneak out, sometimes terrorist, international terrorisms, things like that. The floating of the illegal currency notes. So Nepal is and also the China factor, because if China would like to have a big say in Nepal, I mean, how that is going to affect India's geopolitics, geoeconomics, etc., etc., and particularly how it will affect India in a strategic context. So that is something that Nepal has to figure it out, and India also have to figure it out what to do about it in a short term, also in a long term. But talking about India, I think India has been extremely charitable towards Nepal, both in good times as well as in bad times. If you recollect, during now and then, whenever there is an earthquake, that takes place in Nepal. India is probably the first country that always reaches out to the people of Nepal, the government of Nepal, providing whatever economic assistance it can give in all different ways. When King Gyanendra quit or abdicated, okay, and ultimately the monarchy ended, Nepal was in the process of creating a new constitution in a post-monarchy phase and what kind of government they would like to have. So I remember, luckily, I was a part of that delegation that included one of the ex-Chief Justice of Supreme Court of India, one very important lawyer from India who is currently the Attorney General of India, and myself, and also two experts from Tribhuvan University in Kathmandu. We spent about a week in Kathmandu going through a very rigorous morning 8 o'clock to evening 6 o'clock, going through different drafts, okay, and looking at the models, what kind of models might, different templates, American template, British, Australia, India, Belgium, Canada, and trying to develop a kind of constitutional templates kind of thing. So it took a lot of time. Then since then, a lot of changes has taken place. In Bhutan, again, China factor is very, very important because China would like to control Bhutan as a vassal state. The Doklam issue is there. There are contested areas within Bhutan that China would like to grab, okay, so that they can have a strategic advantage. But India and Bhutan, they have a friendship treaty. India does train the Bhutanese army, and India has a very friendly relation over the decades, okay, with Bhutan. So India would expect that Bhutan can have normal relations with other countries, but Bhutan cannot be like a satellite country of China that might create present or even future a disadvantage strategically to India as well, and particularly to Indian interest. But India does provide significant amount of trade, commerce, infrastructure facilities in Bhutan. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, Bangladesh was created pretty late, I think in 1971, as you know. But going backwards, I think in the 69, 70, when the civil war was taking place, millions of people, they fled from East Pakistan, then East Pakistan, to Bengal, to Tripura and other places in the east. And Mrs. Indira Gandhi, who was the prime minister, she did try in her own way to persuade the major powers, including the United States of America, to do something about the Pakistan crisis. Then the leader in Pakistan was Yahya Khan. Ultimately, the war took place, and in the war, India won decisively, and Bangladesh, the new country, was created. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman became the first prime minister of Bangladesh. But then I think history has taken a lot of turns and twists in Bangladesh. We have seen the assassination of Mujibur Rahman and literally his entire family, then replaced by Ziaur Rahman, another military person. Again, he was also assassinated. Then we had Hussein Muhammad Irsad government, a military person. He ruled for some time. Then came the dynastic thing, namely the daughter of Mujibur Rahman, Sheikh Hasina Wajed. She ruled for many years, followed by Sheikh Hasina Khaleda Zia, the widow, the wife of Ziaur Rahman. She ruled for some time. So in the last 30, 40 years, we see on again, off again, like a rotational kind of thing between the Bangladesh Nationalist Party leader Khaleda Zia and the Awami League. These are the two big political parties in Bangladesh, Awami League of Sheikh Hasina. And last year in August, as you know, the student movement took a ugly turn and they wanted a change of regime, accused the Hasina government of rampant corruption, and blamed her for the price rise, for inflation, for all the other problems that Bangladesh had to endure. Ultimately, she had to flee Bangladesh and took shelter in India. Okay. Currently, Bangladesh is going through an interim government under Muhammad Yunus, who used to be a person running the Bangladesh Grameen Bank. So hopefully there is going to be election by the end of this year or maybe early next year. So still the situation in Bangladesh is kind of in a situation of flux. As far as the issues between India are concerned, the Teen Bigha corridor, the Farakka Dam, Chakma rebels, Rohingya refugees. I think those are some of the important issues, particularly during Hasina's time. There has been some movement to resolve some of these vexatious issues at the highest level by the two countries, but there are issues that remain. And you must have heard recently about there are certain attacks on the Hindu temples, Buddhist temples, etc. So I think Bangladesh, I would say, I mean, we don't know. I mean, this is too early to say how things are going to go. But I think in this context, the role of the United States, particularly under the new president who is going to take over tomorrow, Donald Trump, okay, that will also play important because Bangladesh needs a lot of economic aid, a lot of assistance from big countries, including USA, including China. And what kind of role China is going to play in Nepal, I think that's also very important. Sri Lanka, I think historically, if I would say, or culturally or linguistically, I think we had a good relations with Sri Lanka. But in 1987, there emerged this the Tamil separatist movements. Okay, they got some overt and covert help from the Tamil groups in Tamil Nadu. India and Sri Lanka, they signed a peace treaty of India peacekeeping force. They went to Sri Lanka. The government in Colombo, they tried to bring about some kind of consociational arrangements in Jaffna province because they wanted to separate and segregate from the mainland Sri Lanka and create a new province. That was not acceptable to the Colombo government. And ultimately, brute force was used, okay, and a lot of people died on both sides. Ultimately, India at that time, the Prime Minister was Rajiv Gandhi, and he was assassinated in a suicide attack in Tamil Nadu. In contemporary times, of course, Sri Lanka is a member of SAARC, is a member of SAFTA, South Asian Free Trade Agreement, South Asian Association of Regional Countries, and China factor is still there. China factor is very much there in Bangladesh, in Nepal, in Bhutan, and Sri Lanka, because you must have heard the term called string of pearls. Okay, they would like to create their own extended spheres of hegemony or influence around in the Bay of Bengal, in Indian Oceans, through BRI, Belt and Road initiatives, through One Belt, One Road, providing massive assistance, but in return, they would like to maintain their spheres of influence. Talking about Maldives, Maldives, historically, again, we have a good relationship. Maldives doesn't relies very heavily on India, particularly from the Indian tourist. Okay, they provide a lot of tourist revenues to Maldives. Okay, but again, the China factor is very much there. Okay, China would very much like to keep Maldives under its own domain, create probably a naval base in Maldives, and India is trying to deal with that by having a military base in Lakshadweep and in Minicoy Islands. So Maldives, I don't know. I mean, how Maldives is going to look like a few years from now, because many countries in the world, including US, they have a military base in the Indian Ocean in Diego Garcia. So they might like to look at Maldives as an option, particularly if something goes wrong in the West Asia. Remember in 1991, when the first Persian Gulf War took place, the US military jets and military bombers, they flew from Diego Garcia Islands in Indian Ocean, flew above India. They stopped in Mumbai airport. They refueled that, and then they flew on to Baghdad and Basra. Okay, so we don't know. I mean, how United States is going to look at Maldives in the next couple of years. Same thing applies with Great Britain because they have a lot of interest in Somalia, in Djibouti. How is the France government looks into? Even Saudi Arabian government, they've started this cruise Saudi, and they might have also long-term military approaches toward Maldives. So I think Maldives is a country which is very small, tiny, but that needs to be looked at because many countries in the world, for various reasons, they are interested to see how Maldives is going to step up. As far as SAARC is concerned, okay, South Asian Association of Regional Corporation, which was created in Dhaka in Bangladesh by Ziaur Rahman in the year 1985. All the countries of South Asia, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, India, Pakistan, and even Afghanistan, they also later on become a member. Okay, there are other countries which are also partner countries of SAARC, like USA, like Japan, China, etc. But I think, of course, it is good to talk and discuss about cooperation, about give and take kind of relationship. But there are issues, for example, in SAARC, because everything is to be decided in a consensus. It's very difficult to find consensus between all countries, because different countries, they come with different ideas, different agendas, different game plans. So it is very difficult to enforce a decision unless there is a unanimity, unless there is a uniformity of views. The two main issues that comes to my mind is in SAARC countries, in South Asian countries, is the lack of common visa. So for example, tomorrow, if I would like to go to Bangladesh, I have to apply days in advance to get a visa to go to Bangladesh. Same thing to apply with Sri Lanka or Pakistan. But I think with Nepal and Bhutan, probably I think Indian passport is enough. So I think maybe in the future, it will be good for SAARC countries if they would like to have a more meaningful regional association. They can follow the template of European Union. And most of the countries, I think currently about 30 to 35 countries, they're part of the same European visa called Schengen visa. So whenever I go to a country, let us say I went to France, okay, I can take a train or I can take a flight. I don't need a separate visa to go from France to Germany or to Switzerland or to Belgium or Netherlands or Austria. So you can just move around all those countries in Europe with a single visa for, and you can apply that in any of the European countries, to Denmark, to Sweden. So maybe in future, who knows, I think it will be really great and wonderful if you can have a single visa, okay, of any country. So for example, a person holding a Bangladesh passport can freely go around India or any of those countries, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Maldives, etc. You don't need multiple visas to visit multiple countries within South Asia. Same thing with currency. In Europe, many countries, they have got, in fact, literally all Schengen countries, they have got the currency euro. So euro is a single currency. So, it will really save a lot of time, a lot of money, and hassles also. So the moment let us say I fly to Bangladesh, okay, and I get down in Dhaka, okay, I need Bangladeshi taka, okay, in Pakistan, Pakistan rupiah, okay. So it will be really advantageous if we have a single currency for all these South Asian countries. Okay, if Europe can do it, why can't we do it here in South Asian countries? Okay, because there are so many things which are really common. There are a lot of commonalities. There are even the historical baggages are also similar in many ways. In terms of socio-economic development, we are on the same side of the aisle. So I think it looks very perfectly feasible that we should have a single visa and also we should have a single currency. There are also complaints in certain parts of South Asia that India plays the role of a big brother or a hegemonic roles, okay? Although India says that we are not hegemonic, we are not big brothers, but maybe because of the size of India, the depth of India, the overarching influence of India, certain countries may be feeling intimidated. And also there are radical elements in different countries, okay? So there may be a jealousy factor, there may be a tough battle kind of things. So I think that needs to be also said. Particularly, I think India has a big responsibility because we are the big country in terms of population, in terms of size, in terms of influence, power quotient, etc. So I think we need to reach out to whatever elements in different countries to make sure that they don't feel intimidated and they feel all equal. The Pakistan factor, it is still very much there, okay, although all countries are there because this India-Pakistan equation and a lot of this terrorisms, etc., and certain unvexed issues on Indus River and particularly the nuclear issues, I think those are very important issues. Religion, culture, history, rivers, borders, diversity, form of government, governance, civil military relations, civil society. I think these are all important issues. India does not want to implant or to facilitate only one form of government, because not one size fits all. So if the people of Nepal in a freely guided election, they would like to choose a particular government which is pro-Chinese, that is perfectly okay. Or if Bangladesh would like to have. So I think we can have a working relations with different countries. Maybe they will have a different diverse kind of systems, different governance kind of things. Maybe there are certain cultural factors that may be involved. I think it is perfectly legitimate that there can be different governments, but we all can agree with certain common parameters or common denominators under a common umbrella called South Asia. So I think these are the things I would like to say in India and the neighbors. In terms of India and Southeast Asia, again, a lot of things that I just said are similar, but a lot of things are also not similar and maybe a little bit different. The countries of Southeast Asia are about 10 countries: Myanmar, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam. I think with each of these countries, India has very meaningful FDI, free trade agreements. We have got financial inflow and outflow also. We have got SEPA, comprehensive economic partnership agreements with many different countries. There are countries in Southeast Asia, for example, Indonesia, Malaysia, they have got huge amount of rubber, tin, copper, palm oils. They do export that. There are a lot of amount of Buddhist. They live in Thailand, in different countries. We also have a significant amount of Hindu populations in Bali and other places in Indonesia. On foreign policy, as I said just a few minutes ago, under Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh in the early 90s, we had Look East policy, because we looked at the east of India, beyond Bengal, etc., as a getaway to get more opportunities, more trade, more commerce, more interactions, etc. And that translated during the early part of this century into Act East policy. Part of the reason was we wanted to diversify, we wanted to expand our net of influence, our spheres of influence. And also you can argue that part of the reason was to, in some way, in a benign way rather, to contain the influence of China, which was overarching in Southeast Asia, including in South China Sea and many other places. In contemporary times, we see the influence of America, which is also interested in Southeast Asia for its geostrategic locations. America has, over in the last 30-40 years, they had military agreements with Indonesia, with Philippines. There are military bases in Philippines for a long time, in Subic and Clark. America has bases in Japan, in Korea. They have got military agreements. The Japanese conquest, that is a history that the Southeast Asian people remember for a long time. From Indian perspective, the Indian National Army that was founded by Subhash Chandra Bose in Singapore, okay, there was a time just during the World War II, Japan was literally all over Southeast Asia. And that also provided a historical touch to India and Southeast Asia. During the Cold War, 1945 to 1990, we have got American military alliance called SEATO, SEATO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. Many countries, even Pakistan was a member, because East Pakistan happened to be in the east side, so Pakistan was a member, and other countries like Indonesia, Philippines, etc. Eventually, SEATO disbanded, but we do have regional agreements. And don't forget, for a long time in the 50s, 60s, and even in the early 70s, America fought the longest war in Vietnam. Ultimately, the war ended in 74, and Ho Chi Minh became the president of Vietnam. So that have a long history of the American involvement in Indochina, in Cambodia, in Laos. We have got the East Timor rebellions. So there are many internal development that has taken place within Southeast Asia that has also got ramifications for the other major powers, including India and other countries. When Indonesia was decolonized in the late 40s, I believe, and Sukarno was the leader. It is India that did help. In fact, Nehru dispatched a political leader from Congress party and who later on became the chief minister of Odisha, Biju Patnaik, to rescue Sukarno and other people in Indonesia, and Indonesia eventually became free country from the colonial rule of Netherlands, from Dutch colonialism. So Indonesia and India, incidentally, few days from now, when the Republic Day celebration will take place this year, the chief guest in the Republic Day parade in India will be the president of Indonesia. And one of the things, as I read in the newspaper, is he's going to sign $1 billion contract with India because he's very much interested to buy the BrahMos missiles and many other sophisticated weapons, because India also has got a very robust defense diplomacy. Trade and investment, textiles, rice, IT sectors, literally everywhere. I was in Singapore a few months ago, and you go to any part of Singapore and you can see the influence of India in all different things. You can see Indian students in different universities in Singapore, Indian industries, Indian markets. That is also, don't forget, there is a very sizable and influential Indian diaspora in literally all these Southeast Asian countries, including Singapore. The Singapore's president, incidentally, who is currently visiting India, he's still on the visit. Yesterday, I believe he was in Bhubaneswar. A few days ago, he met Prime Minister Modi in an official capacity as a state visit. So there are many things that is taking place between India and Singapore. And in terms of economic cooperation, in terms of trade, in terms of investments, I hope things will go in a higher trajectory so that both the countries, they can benefit on a win-win situation. India is not exactly a part of ASEAN, but India is an extended version of ASEAN +1, maintaining relationship with different countries. Trade and investment. BIMSTEC is also another important regional bodies in Southeast Asia, consisting of Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Thailand, etc. And in BIMSTEC, we're also trying to develop more communication, more infrastructure, maybe a railways or more air connectivity, etc. Security cooperation, we try to do that. We also have a defense exercise. Malabar exercise is a notable one that takes place every year with India, Singapore, Malaysia, with all these littoral countries from Bay of Bengal to Strait of Malacca to South China Sea. In terms of Southeast Asia, also India in the last couple of years, particularly under Modi II government, in the last government, we had got a lot of emphasis on Indo-Pacific security architecture. And as part of that, we have joined with Japan, Australia, and US a Quad, meaning quadrilateral initiatives. So because there is a lot of emphasis taking place on marine securities, on how to curb piracy, how to curb drug trafficking, how to curb international terrorism, okay, and also how to boost trade and investments in the entire littoral states, okay, including particularly in the Indian Oceans, okay, and in the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, you should be aware that there has been a lot of issues internally within certain Southeast Asian countries. For example, in Indonesia, for a long time, Jemaah Islamiyah, which is a right-wing radical governments in Indonesia. We have got the certain areas in Philippines outside Manila. They're also demanding separate homelands. But I think all of these things are internal, but I think India can help some of these countries in terms of trade, in commerce. Particularly India has a strong influence, not only in hard power that they are interested in. As I said, in Indonesia, they are interested for BrahMos missiles, but also in soft power. So you go to any of those Southeast Asian countries, you go to Bangkok, you go to Kuala Lumpur, you go to Jakarta, you go to Singapore. I've been to Manila, so you can see how the influence of Indians soft power, whether it is Bollywood or Indian cuisine, yoga, many things, even the matches of cricket, okay, public diplomacy, works of Indian classic works of Tagore, Kautilya, and many things, okay. So I think all of these things has provided a lot of headway to Indian influence in Southeast Asia. The next unit is India and Central Asia and West Asia. India, of course, doesn't have that much of depth in Central Asia, but still, nevertheless, I think India does take a relationship with Central Asia because Central Asia literally was a pretty comparatively new phenomenon in the post 1990, because until 1990 most of the Central Asian republics used to be a part of the conglomerate within Soviet Union. When Soviet Union dismembered in 1990, at that point of time, we have got several republics like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. So now we have got a bilateral kind of things with each of these countries. These countries are very rich in oil resources, natural gas, cotton, wool, meat, animal skin, leather goods, okay? So they sometimes come to us for our pharmaceuticals, for textiles and other IT benefits, and we also try to tap into those resources. But apart from that, there has been a big security perimeters that we also like to take into, because if Central Asia becomes vulnerable, if it becomes weak, that will also create problems for us. That is still under kind of, you can say, de facto control of Russia, although these are all independent countries with strong presidency, etc. But because they used to be ruled by Soviet Union for a long, long time, when I was in Moscow, a lot of my students, they happened to be from Uzbekistan, happened to be from Tajikistan, etc., etc. Because I believe they are given some special status in Russia. They get like a green card, like a permanent resident status. They can do some jobs. They can get some financial benefits, etc., etc. They have a strong presidency. Islam as a religion is very dominant in most of this country, whether it is Tajikistan or Kazakhstan. Religion, language, influence of Russia, and also lately influence of other countries like China, USA, Europe, Iran, West Asia, they are also very, very important. Our Prime Minister and External Affairs Minister and other countries, other ministers, they do visit these countries in Central Asia to enhance economic cooperation, energy, pharmaceutical, healthcare, economic development. During COVID time, I remember Prime Minister extended a hand of cooperation and sent a lot of Covishield, Covaxin. They appreciated all of these countries. But again, as I said, Central Asia is important, but I think if you compare with West Asia and East Asia, I don't think it is the most important element within India's foreign policy architecture. As far as West Asia is concerned, as you know, West Asia is a huge geographical mass dominated by three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. If you don't want to go back, Abbasid dynasty, Ottoman Empire, Babylonian Empire, Iranian Emperor. Within Islam, you have got Shia population, Sunni population, Wahhabi population. It is very diverse. For example, if you go to a country like Iran, most people, the Muslims in Iran, they belong to the Shia sect, like Ayatollah Khomeini, etc. You go to a country like Iraq, just neighboring country, most people are Sunni. Okay, you go to a country like Saudi Arabia, most people they believe in Wahhabi sect. So don't be under the illusion that everybody, because they belong to, like in Christianity, there are people from different churches, different groups but in Islam also there are diverse groups within different sects of that. Oil, of course, is a very important common denominator in most of the West Asian countries, whether it is Iran, Iraq, Emirates, Oman, Saudi Arabia, etc. And because of the oil, of course, you can see a lot of the geopolitics and geoeconomics that also plays into that, whether it is by US or China, Israel, Palestine, Syria, Iran, Iraq, GCC, Libya, many things. When 9/11 took place in America, September 11, 2001, again, West Asia came into picture because most of the people who committed that horrible crime, they happen to be from West Asian part, okay? In the last G20 summit, you must have heard about an ambitious plan that was floated called India Middle East European Economic Corridor, connecting India with Middle East, with Europe, and also the broader part. Okay? Abraham Accords, that was a big landmark under Trump 1 administration. Let us see if Trump 2 is going to take it forward. Abraham Accord was basically aimed at bringing about a normal relationship between Israel, that America strongly supports, and certain Arab countries like Bahrain, like United Arab Emirates, like Morocco, etc. And maybe they would be happy to get Saudi Arabia and other countries in the region. So let us see if Abraham Accord is going to get a boost or a fillip under the Trump 2 administration. So that is something to watch. Oil is a very big issue. Remember in the 1973 war between Arab countries and Israel, the Arab countries, they put an oil embargo, and that really shoot up the prices. So if tomorrow Saudi Arabia or Iraq and Iran or OPEC countries, they raise the price of the crude oil, that definitely will raise things. I think for the last couple of years, I think if I buy like a 1 liter of petrol, it is what, 95, 98, in some places 100 rupees, 102, depending on the local taxes, etc. So I think things can go way up, and that will affect many countries in the world. Also, the remittances that we get from the diasporic population, that is a significant amount from the different West Asian countries back to India, that definitely help us economically. The commercial links, the trade routes, the Indian diaspora in many countries, okay? The other day I was giving a lecture in Sapru House in Council for World Affairs, how the diasporic population in Emirates, how they are helping India and how India is also helping them through herbal diplomacy, through temple diplomacy, through the new education policy 2020, by establishing campuses in Emirates. IIT Delhi has started a new campus in Abu Dhabi and many places. Okay, so West Asia and India, they have got a historical relationship, cultural relationships, trade relationships, and India is also willing to provide any kinds of help, both in terms of hard power and soft power, to any of those countries. India and Israel, I think India is one of the rare countries in the world which has got a good relations with both Israel and Palestine, with both Russia and Ukraine. Okay, not many countries are privileged to have that. So I think India should try to take advantage of this unique advantage that it has. And as I've said before, it is not necessary to have a zero-sum relationship in a foreign policy decision making. You can be friends with both Mr. A and Mr. B, even though Mr. A and B are not in talking terms with one another, because our relationship is across the board on a wide range of issues. With Iraq, with Iran and Israel, they don't like each other, but we have good relations with Iran. In fact, we are trying to provide significant amount of economic aid to develop SAARC airport. Okay? Palestine, we have been supporting Palestine since many decades. We have good relationship with Palestine. Even on the recent issue in Gaza, last year after the Hamas thing, okay, we did send a lot of economic aid to those needy people out there, and we're still trying to find a meaningful solution. The good thing is, at least for the last few days, you must be hearing there has been a ceasefire. So let us hope it holds, this truce is maintained. Okay, so India is always in favor of finding a just and durable solution to the Palestinian issues, and also enhance the cultural links. Okay, in spite of the fact that this particular part of the world, West Asia, it always a very fluid area, undergoes a lot of geopolitical churning, geoeconomics, geostrategies, etc. The last one, chapter 12, I think it talks about India, Latin America, and Caribbean. Just like I think Central Asia, Latin America and Caribbean, they get comparatively a low priority. But in recent times, our leaders, including the Prime Minister, including Foreign Minister and other ministers, they've been visiting different parts. In the 60s and 70s, we had a good relation with certain countries, for example, with Venezuela, because we get a lot of oil. particularly with Cuba. Cuba was an important member of the non-alignment movement. Fidel Castro has visited Delhi. I remember when I was 1982, I attended this convention of NAM in Bigyan Bhavan in Delhi. And Mrs. Gandhi was there as the prime minister. And Cuba, Fidel Castro played a very, very important role. India and Cuba, they have been very closely aligned. There is also cultural dimension literally in every Latin American societies, countries. You can see the works of Gandhi. There are yoga centers, literatures, etc. Brahma Kumari conventions that take place there. Hare Krishna movement, trade and investments, Indian exports, drugs, pharmaceuticals, vaccines, chemicals, machinery, textiles. India's major imports from Latin America has been telecom, railroad, water sewage, petroleum and minerals. As far as the big powers are concerned in Latin America, excuse me, and the US factories there, you remember in 1961 when Kennedy was the president, there was a famous Cuban Missile Crisis when the Russia placed certain nuclear weapons in the soils of Cuba, and United States felt very threatened and intimidated. And then President of USA, Kennedy, he requested Khrushchev, the leader of Soviet Union, to withdraw the nuclear missiles from Cuba, because Cuba, if you look at the map, which is not very far from Florida, okay, just few miles away. For 13 days, there's a lot of back and forth kind of negotiation. So the whole world was in a state of alert because at that point of time, only these two countries, they are got nuclear weapons. So people are afraid that a third world war might happen if there is a miscalculation or misperception how to handle or mishandle the Cuban Missile Crisis. Thank God, ultimately the situation got diffused, and ultimately Khrushchev and Soviet Union, they decided to withdraw the nuclear shipments and missiles from the territory of Cuba, and that diffused the situation of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The China factor, in the last 15-20 years, China has also made a big foray into Latin American markets, trying to sneak into it. Also in terms of the Caribbean, which is nearby in countries like West Indies, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. Recently, Prime Minister Modi went to Guyana. There is a significant Indian diasporic population living over there. They also take important parts in the people-to-people contract in trade and commerce. There has been FTA, free trade agreements with countries like Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico. We also have a preferential trade agreements with Chile, Mexico, Brazil, Uruguay, etc. So I think we have been trying to reach out with all the countries, like as our Prime Minister always says, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Prayas, Sabka Vishwas, I think. But in terms of the global kind of things, I think Latin America, Caribbean doesn't come into that kind of attention the way you see in West Asia or East Asia or in North America kind of thing. But that doesn't mean to say that Latin America and Caribbean are not important. It is also equally important. We do have embassies from all the countries. We do have meaningful negotiation, meaningful collaborations on a regular basis. Our leaders, they go there, they come here. We do, when I was teaching, we have got many students, they come there. And we also have increasing educational collaboration, I would say. Also in many universities in India, in Delhi also, we have got language facilities. They teach Kazakh language, Tajiki language, Turkmenistan language, Spanish language, Portuguese language. So all of those languages, they are very important, and Arabic language, Parsi language. So in Central Asia, West Asia, Latin America and Caribbean. So I think India is doing, I would say, a very good job in reaching out to those countries and in trying to tap into whatever resources and whatever things we can get from them. So it's like more reciprocal kind of things on an equal basis, okay? But we are also oblivious to their own needs, okay, their domestic needs, and we don't like to interfere or intervene or intrude into their own domestic domains. Whatever decision they need to take, so that is their country. The pilot of their country. they elect their leaders, their system of governance. But having said that, on a broad spectrum, I would say India always tries to reach out to different countries in different parts of India because we have a very open-ended policies. And I think that is hold good. I think in the next 10 or 20 years, I think we will see much more intensive, much more sustainable and sustained diplomacy will carry out with all these different parts of the country. But I would, among all these countries, I would say, I think South Asia is one country that I think we should put more emphasis. Again, it goes back to Gujarat doctrine, where South Asia was given a lot of prominence. And during COVID crisis, India did help each of the countries in South Asia. So I think SAARC can be a big template, can be a good role model. And of course, we need to develop with GCC, with ASEAN, with many other countries. So of course, we are members with BRICS and SCO and many other different foreign policy outlets. So I think that's all for today. Any questions, any comments? I would be more than happy to take you. Okay. Thank you. Domingos, Sriya, Binod, ma'am. Anybody has any comments? Anything would like to know a little more or anything would like to share? Maybe anything I missed? Binod, anything you would like to add or anything new aspect that you would like to highlight?
Nothing specific comes to my mind, sir. I think you covered it holistically well in terms of
Yes,
the Southeast Asia as well as the Middle
it's
East.
a big white canvas. So but I just tried to, they're touching the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so because you are all smart and intelligent. Okay, so there is nothing like a rocket science. Okay, we all understand that we live under the same roof. Okay. But this diasporic thing, I think I'm very grateful and appreciative of Dr. Sadanand and the people, the colleagues that they are doing in IGNU and other centers in India as well. I think that's a great area, that is a great promise, great potential. And 20 years ago, 30 years ago, diaspora was there, okay? But nobody paid that much attention except here and there, okay? But today, I think that is an important fulcrum and also an important component of the India's foreign policy decision making. So I think that's a very big thing, and I think we're putting a lot of energy, a lot of effort, lot of attention to that things, okay, to this diasporic thing. So I think that is good. And also in terms of not putting all eggs in one basket, okay. So that's why I said Central Asia is important, Latin America is important, and we have got Africa is important, of course. Caribbean is important. Australia is important. Okay, so there is nothing like, as I said, big power, small power, middle power, etc., etc. Okay, Sriya, anything you'd like to say? Any comments? Domingo? Okay, so I think let us wrap it up. Okay, maybe you can go for lunch. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so thanks for attending my class today. I appreciate it. Okay. I'm glad that you are all enjoying the class. Okay, so let us keep it very open, transparent, and also very interactive, as Dr. Sadanand said at the very outset. Okay, because knowledge is something. It's not like give, give, give. It has to be also take, take, take. Okay, give and take. Okay, so it has to be both lectures and also in a more receiving kind of things. Okay, so that makes it very interesting and also very entertaining. So again, thank you so much. Okay, have a great day. Again, I will see you at 7 o'clock on the India and Africa. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, so much. Thank you.